Hello there. Good afternoon. Much love to you. Fully locked in as usual. It is I, Tello, Papa Tello. The person who brings the news, the information, all that good stuff from above. I realize it's finally time to go back to my roots, amigos. And it's been a minute since I gave a genuine Paladin guide, a genuine class guide of where to head in the direction of gearing for PvE, and also PvP stuff as well, which I'm really excited to talk about and dabble in today. And, I did some research today. I've broken down some information, did a lot of comparisons, a lot of screenshots. We're going to be discussing a lot of stuff regarding Paladins coming the next phase of Season of Discovery for BWL, ZG, Phase 5 overall. So, hope you guys enjoy. And by the way, we had a great podcast yesterday with Ebonheart and Sardako. Much love to those amigos, and thank you for having the kid on. It's really a pleasure to, see a bunch of nice people over here in the WoW community, and the editor loves it too. Shout out to him. Don't get shot in Minecraft. I said what I said. And YouTube family friendly, keep it in Minecraft. However, though, we got a lot of things to discuss, so let's get right to the video and a little coffee for today before we continue. Oh yes, certified. However, though, now, what you're seeing above you right here, or in front of you actually, is WoW Sims. Now, WoW Sims obviously is the website that a lot of people use to basically get a rough estimate of kind of an indication of where their class might be, potentially might go in, the next, phase when it comes to us. And it seems like right now, from at least what WoW Sims is saying on the PvE side of things, that we are going to be averaging around 4,000 damage per second, which is kind of freaking crazy. Do not get me wrong. I've even seen like things happen on the I guess the test work or the the PTR where paladins look like they're excelling to a crazy amount, which kind of seems a little absurd because test work is basically 100% crit when you spam exo on him. So I don't think those numbers are varying correctly, in my opinion. I think those numbers are a little off, and there's a lot of things that obviously can be off with the PTR in general, right? And I think we've known this already for quite some time. But basically, when it comes to the Tier 2 Radiant Judgment set, the fact that we're going to have the ability to use both Seal Twisting with the Seal Stacking set from, we have the Molten Core variant, we have the Draconic variant as well, it opens up a lot of flex options, right? And for this particular set, this is the Radiant set, the new Tier 2 set we're going to get from BWL. So as you see, even if we hit the Simulate button here, we're going to go through many tests that it goes through 3,000 different iterations to complete to see how many different outcomes might, respond with a different number. Obviously, these results can be subjected to change once we actually get in there, once we test more with the, the complete set. But as for right now, with the PTR and everything in place, this is kind of very accurate to see what paladins might actually do. And it's not too far off if you really look at, especially with the logs right now in MC3, which I could show you guys a screenshot here. On MC3, even with, paladins right now, they're very well doing around 3,400 damage, around that ballpark. A lot of people are hitting over the 3,000s, and it's really crazy how much damage paladins are really doing. I've even seen some paladins and some meters on certain logs that they are just, scaling to higher numbers, even that probably like on the Magmadar fight or some of the earlier fights in Molten Core. But what I'm getting at is that these numbers are not unrealistic at this point, because in Season of Discovery, our damage is, out the window. It is absolutely crazy. I think we can all admit that our damage is way too nuts. Maybe down the line in the future, we should scale it down a little bit. But that's just, a topic for another day. But I will say, I do think WoW Sims has it correct here. A lot of the pieces that they are recommending seems to be accurate when it comes to the PvE side of things. I could see, especially the Libram of Plenty being used a lot, because now with the Libram of Plenty, you're now going to be able to get a 10% additional maximum mana return on top of the 5%. That's a 15% mana return on, your Crusader Strike. But at the same time, if mana is not a problem, you could just use the Libram of Fervor, which is obviously the more damage that you basically do when you apply the Seal of Crusader. So that can, maybe possibly, and we can run another test here to see if we get a little bit different result. It might not, react with a higher number or not. It's kind of about the same, but you could run that instead if you wish to see if you get just a little slight increase of damage overall in your fights. I honestly recommend this set. I think I'm going to be going for the Tier 2 set myself, personally. You can go with the Untamed Blade if you wish to. The Untamed Blade is nice because you do get the increased strength by 300 for 8 seconds, so that is pretty badass, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, like, you know, if you manage to get yourself an Ashkandi, don't worry about the Lightbringer hammer, because to be honest with you, that's only going to be a weapon we're going to be using in the dungeon, you know, in the ruins of Anderhall. So I don't think we're going to be able to get this whatsoever. So it's really just Ashkandi. If you have Hand of Rag or Spinal Reaper, you can't go wrong with any of this. Even if you have Obsidian Edgeblade, like for example, even if you have Obsidian Edgeblade, let me show you this real quick. You're only looking at 100 DPS loss, right? Still pretty damn good at 3950, 3949, around that ballpark, and you're chilling. So like right now, I'll probably be entering there. I hope I get myself a Hand of Rag. We had one eye drop last night. Our guildie got it. Much love to him. I'm looking at getting one myself. And with a Spinal Reaper, like, you're still looking at really damn good damage. Around the same ballpark of the Obsidian Edgeblade, or a little bit less, depending on the scenario. But overall, though, I'm really excited to get into BWL to test this set. This is something that I think WoW Sims is correct with so far on how they want to gear out the Paladin for PvE on the side of things. So let's now talk about a little bit more on, you know, the second side of things, which is the Lawbringer Seal Stacking Judgment set. Now, for the Lawbringer Seal Stacking Judgment set, now you're going to see on the screen here that we obviously have just like, you know, basically the original Lawbringer set. But if you were to change this, even no matter what, if we simulate these numbers, right, it's around the 2600 ballpark, but obviously we've seen people that we've seen in the logs that I showed you earlier, people can hit way higher than those numbers. So realistically, the seal stacking set of the Lawbringer can really do higher than 3k on a norm. Like a really good Paladin could do higher than 3k depending on their raid comp, depending on, you know, obviously with all the consumes, the Biss enchants. The same thing goes for all the sets overall. If you have the Biss enchants, the best consumables, the perfect raid comp, the great gear, you know, everything's best in slot, you're normally with a competent group, especially pushing MC3 or whatever, are going to hit a lot of damage, high parses, and big numbers. And when it comes to the Lawbringer set, even if this is put onto the new Tier 2 Judgment set, you're still going to get around the same outcome. I actually tested it. I'll show some screenshots here. And it was still about 2700 DPS, which seems to still be lacking behind a lot from the new Radiant Judgment Tier 2 set. So it really seems that that set is going to really depend on how it is once we're in the live game, or the live version of, you know, Phase 5. And we're going to have to test that out a little bit more. I do think people might still prefer that set because maybe they don't like to time the twisting. And I understand that. Like, here, let me be honest with you. At the end of the day, twisting is not for everybody. If you want to do, obviously, the lazy man twisting and, you know, have the ability to, you know, obviously, you know, double judge, because I know that is a thing when it comes to the seal stacking set. And you pretty much lose that when it comes to the Radiant Judgment set, because it's so confusing. You have the Radiant Judgment, then you have this Judgment. There's 18 different thousand judgments. That's a lot of shit to talk about. However, though, what I'm getting at, it's the lazy man seals twisting. If you want to stick to, you know, just doing the Lawbringer thing, you're good to go and you're chilling. You could still rock with that, and I'm sure you could pump some pretty good numbers. You might even hit up to the high 3500s realistically, if you know, get more better gear through next phase as well. So I think the seal stacking set, regardless of what it's saying on the Sims, is still going to be solid, still going to be good, and the proof is in the pudding because a lot of those numbers from MC3 show that you can hit higher with the seal stacking set. So don't let the WoW Sims be the grand all be all of what gear you should wear, and just know that you might be totally fine. You know, might. I'm going to put an underscore on the might, because obviously at the end of the day, if you want to upgrade to the Radiant, you totally could, but you might be fine is what I'm getting at. So settle down and lock it in. I said what I said. However, though, I do think that's basically what I recommend personally when it comes to, you know, the seal stacking gearing. It's pretty much the same gearing as the last gearing I showed you, but at the same time, you're just using the Judgment variant. So you can go for like the new rings, the new trinkets, you know, possibly a new belt if you want to go for, or a new back piece with a new neck piece. But everything else as far as like the slot set pieces is basically the Judgment seal stacking variant. So we're going to talk about now more of Exodin, because I'm very curious about what you guys think about Exodin here. Now, for Exodin players, now, Exodin seems like it's on Sims doing the same kind of damage, once again, as the seal stacking set that we currently have. However, we do know Exodin scales really damn high as well, and especially in the current phase with people using like Typhoon and stuff like that, or if they're using the Arcanite Champion, the redefined Arcanite Champion, it is really hitting hard Exodin as well, and it's something that I personally think is getting a little bit more slept on come to phase 5 in comparison to, you know, obviously the seal twisting, the numbers being insane for phase 5. I think Exodin is going to be really strong, especially with the new weapon that we're going to be getting with the Truth Bearer, which obviously gives us 30 strength, 21 agi, 16 stam. We're going to have 4 holy damage to our melee attacks, and on chance on hit, increased damage done by 15 and attack speed by 30% for 8 seconds, as well as the on-use effect that it does offer, but that's not too relevant when it comes to obviously the you know, what we're trying to do with Exit and just spam exorcism nonstop, right? Machine gun raft style gameplay. But when it comes to, like, you know, this particular set, it's gonna hit the high 3000s. I genuinely believe once it gets like all the pieces it needs and we're live in the phase, we're gonna see players pop off on the Warcraft logs with high 3000s, maybe even close to 4 with Exodin. And I think it's getting slept on because obviously, you know, the twisting set, it seems like we're heading in a more twist direction, which in fairness, I'm happy that's happening because listen, at the end of the day, I like when metas change, right? I think it's really healthy for the game when the meta changes for your character on, you know, a different direction. Now, sometimes it's not good for everybody, right? Some classes suffer it because the meta's changed in a way that doesn't benefit them. And that sucks. I'm not going to, you know, disagree with you guys there. And that's a bummer because you play the class you want to play, you should enjoy the class you want to play. I always feel like if you nerf a class, you should change it and buff it in other areas, you know what I mean? To compensate, so to say. But when it comes to, you know, the Exodin, you know, set right now, or I'll say set, but just the Exodin playstyle, I definitely think that it's taken a little bit more of a backseat because it was so strong. You know what I mean? Exodin, ever since when we were getting into phase 2 of Nomer, I mean, we were just spamming Exodin, phase 3, spamming it over and over again. And I think it's about time that we kind of take the change and, you know, now that twisting is, you know, an option, now it's giving the twisting players, you know, a phase or so to shine on and see what they can do with twisting. And Exodin is still strong. It's just probably not going to be as good as twisting when it comes to, you know, obviously the, you know, the set bonuses and just the way, you know, the seal stacking works, and as well as the new Radiant set that we're getting from BWL. It's just right now, Sims wise, seems like twisting is going to be the play overall. So I personally recommend play the style that you want to play, and I'll go a little bit more into that at the end after we talk about Shockadin here right now in a second. Now, as far as Shockadin goes, now it seems like Shockadin this time around is taking a nice leap in results when it comes to its damage per second overall. Another big thing about Shockadin is that the amount of support that it's getting in terms of holy damage, in terms of set viability within Zul'Gurub, especially with, you know, now they have the 3-piece set where you get the increased damage of your holy damage from your equip with the 3% chance of holy spells to hit. You get the 37 on holy, you get the 14 on holy from the 2 set, and you get the 50% holy shock damage as well. On top of adding the Libram of Wrath now, which is causing damage with your holy shock. Spell reduces the cast time and mana cost of your next holy wrath cast within 15 seconds by 20%, increasing its damage basically by 20%, stacking up to 5 times. Wrath, Paladin, holy Shockadin. This Shockadin style Paladin seems very scary. On paper, it's already doing, just from Sims of 3,000 iterations that it has to complete here, it is doing pretty damn well. And I'm actually shocked that it's doing this much damage for Shockadin overall. It's actually pretty solid. It's acceptable. And I think, you know, obviously, when it comes to its Exodin and twisting counterparts, of course, it's a big gap. Do not get me wrong. But Shockadin offers, you know, some good values to the raid. Obviously, you know, no matter what, if you bring a Paladin, even if it's not, you know, if you don't have a RET Paladin for some reason, if you don't have a RET Paladin in your raid, I'm not sure why you wouldn't at this point in SOD. But if you don't have a RET Paladin and you're bringing Shockadins instead, it's still pretty damn good to have a Shockadin plus their utility that they bring overall. But where they slow down in PvE, because obviously it's not as high as the damage of what the Sims are saying, this is subject to change no matter what, in terms of, you know, phase 5 when the real environment comes out, they shine in PvP. And when PvP comes, Shockadin's going to be an absolute nightmare. It's going to be very scary versus Shockadins. The ability of how much damage they can do from range, as well as get up in your face, as well as bubble and still cast Holy Shocks, is still going to be extremely scary, and giving them the freedom to blast you at Exodins, to blast you with Judgments, especially once they get the Judgment set where there's no cooldown on Judgment, blast you with, you know, all 3 different ranged abilities. It's going to be crazy, is what I'm saying. And on top of even having the shield with Avenger Shield, think about that from a PvP perspective as well. Shockadin is looking like an absolute house right now. And I'm not going to lie, as a player who normally plays just Ret Paladin, you know, I love Deep Ret Paladin and I love Ret Reckoning. Those are like the 2 specs I really enjoy the most. I must say, I want to try this out just to see how crazy it really is. And just from versing Shockadins already, you know, obviously get my butt whipped. It's crazy how good Shockadins are right now and where they will be come next phase. And that's not even talking about even prop paladins, which I'm not even mentioning in this video, but prop paladins are an absolute nightmare. And come next phase, when they get the 20% to reckoning, I don't even want to think about how scary the other iterations of paladin really are in PvP. I'm obviously remaining Ret and Ret Rec. That's going to be the stuff I'm doing, but more power to you. If you have a Shockadin or you have a couple Shockadin friends, you guys are in good hands, going to be eating real good next phase. Even if the damage numbers don't reflect how amazing you might be come, you know, BWL and ZG, I still think in PvP, you're having no complaints. Even with the small little nerfs and adjustments that Blizzard's been making, doesn't matter. You guys are going to be freaking smacking. And on top of also getting, like, obviously, the, you know, the healing done that you guys get with your gear as well. And, you know, the amount of holy power, I mean, and the defensives, man, Shockadin's looking like an absolute nightmare. I get scared to verse him as well. But much love to you guys. That's what I want to talk about Shockadin. Let's basically transition, so to say. Not transmission. We're not driving a car here, Tello. Unbelievable. Transition into the next portion of the video. Now, we're not done yet because I want to go into the PvP side of things when it comes to basically playing Paladin come phase 5 and what I might go for in PvP. Now, this is just a rough draft. We might have to go over some more things because things are subject to change all the time when it comes to PvP, when it comes to test these things out. So let's go over to that point of, you know, the video right now. When it comes to PvP Paladin in phase 5, now, don't worry about this title right now. I just titled it BWL. Whatever, right? We're just leaving it as this. But right now, this is currently what I'm gearing my Paladin to be in Phase 5 PvP. As you can see, I'm currently rocking the 3-piece Field Marshal set, because now, if you noticed on the website, on Wowhead, they have talked about, you know, changing rank 13 and, you know, basically decreasing a little bit more stamina, but giving more intellect now when it comes to RET gear. And I think that's phenomenal because a lot of people for a long time, we were asking for, you know, intellect on our gear, especially for Ret Paladins. It was the one thing that we were extremely slacking on. We're a Spellblade class. We need to have the ability to have mana and also have our strength and stamina. So it's a good even spread, and I really like what they're doing right now as far as giving, or see, I'm already saying things incorrectly. Giving. That's how you know that I'm super excited for Ret Paladin. Settle down and get packed up. Don't get me angry out that what I said. However, though, I'm really excited that they are giving Paladins intellect on their gear. It's going to be really fun to do PvP now, as well as having the new Libram with the 15% Crusader Strike with the mana return, because we already get 5%. It's very beautiful, and I'm considering the 3-piece because I personally like having a reduced cooldown on Hammer of Justice, so I can get, you know, my cooldown down from 60 to 50, I believe. And it's just a much nicer flow, so I can get another Hodge out quicker when there's a long duel going on. But overall, I'm building my Paladin in a way where I want my Paladin to be a little bit more stamina heavy and a little bit more resistance heavy. Now, to be honest with you, if I really wanted to, and this is just like, you know, we're rough drafting right here, so you're kind of like in the brain of Tello right now. We're chilling in here together. But if I really wanted to, I can really mid-max this to get my fire resistance to like 180 if I really want to. Because at that point, we get to around the 170, 180 mark where we're, you know, basically we're resisting a lot of like lava burst, right? Especially from like shamans or any other fire-based class. we're resisting a lot of that fire-based damage, especially from like mages and warlocks, right? But if we really wanted to like go all gun-ho on stamina, we could try to go for more stamina options. We can also, if we want to go all gun-ho on pure damage, we can change these trinkets out. Like personally, one of my favorite trinkets in the game is currently Dark Moon Torment. I like the ability where it causes them, basically the target, to basically wander and suffering for 3 seconds. It just basically immobilizes them for like 3 seconds, and at that point, if they want to pop a defensive or be dumb and waste like an option, you know, that's completely on them. But I like this trinket a lot. I've been using it a lot. I know a lot of great other paladins have been using. I've seen Arca Arca uses this all the time in his duels. And he's been using it for a while now, and he dominates with this Torment trinket. I know when it comes to using like more heavy stamina eccentric things, it's really smart to use these things. Like I know Paladin has talked about this a lot as well, when it comes to using a little bit more stamina on your Paladin, because the more stamina you have, the more survivability you have. And in a way, more stamina equals more strength for the Paladin, because the longer the duel is, the longer it favors the Paladin overall. But in general, though, to continue, as far as like, you know, how I'm going about it, this is just a general like concept of what I might do. I'm not 100% sure on paper this will be the finale of how I build my Paladin. I might switch things up. Maybe I rock more Judgment, you know, leg plates of more of the Radiant set, so I can maybe get the 6-piece. Maybe I go a little bit more into the Field Marshal, so I can get the 6-piece there. Or I like to split it up a little bit, so I get the best hybrid pieces of like this side of things and that side of things when it comes to PvP and PvE, just to get a little bit more bang for my buck out of what I can really push out. If I really wanted to, you know, maybe remove the attack power and go like, I don't know, more fire resistance, so to say, where I can, you know, add more fire resistance and then go more fire resistance, you know, defensive overall, I could do that as well to try to push that 170, 180 mark and get just, you know, really good fire res. Obviously, you know, we're getting more nature resistance as well. You know, come, you know, this next phase, you know, things are having of that nature. But overall, I think, honestly, my recommendation is just play around with how you want to build your Paladin. I know, honestly, not everyone's going to have Ashkandi, right? Maybe you might be rocking, you know, maybe you have the Hand of Rag, or maybe you have Spinal Reaper. I know right now I have Spinal Reaper, so I would be rocking Spinal Reaper, you know, at the current moment, until, you know, I get an Ashkandi or something else. And I like to run Immune to Disarm, because just the ability to never be disarmed, you know, is just a really good thing in PvP. That's my personal preference. But if you want to run Crusader, you know, completely up to you. You can run Crusader if you wish to. And you can have Crusader, you know, obviously for, you know, the big, basically, you know, the heal, but also the strength, right, that you get for 15 seconds, right? Completely up to you. You could change your wrist out as well. However you want to play it, this is really on your end. I like the fact that we're obviously going to be getting the new seals once we start doing ZG more. So now we can add this to our head and leg slot. And there's just going to be a lot of things to really play around with. And right now, at this like current moment, even with the Spinal Reaper, like, which is actually nuts now that I think about it, it's giving me obviously the 28 stamina. I'm sitting at like 5,600 health and 3257 mana with my Paladin currently. And if I wanted to add, you know, obviously more other Field Marshal gear, I could probably have more mana, right? Or if I wanted to change out, you know, the 100 health for like mana or something of that nature, I could do that as well. There's really a lot of things you could play around with to really change the way your Paladin plays, and how much more stamina you get. You don't need to use Duke's Domain, but what I like about Duke's Domain is that you get the 20 fire resistance, you get the 22 stamina, so those play into effect when it comes to PvP as well as just in PvE. You just don't use the on-use effect, right? But you can, you know, if you wanted to, you know, if you're staying in like a certain circle and you wanted to just pop it down, I mean, it's for 15 seconds, so you can technically use it. But overall, though, this is something that I'm kind of like leaning towards to. I will have to study and learn from, obviously, you know, other great Paladins that play the game. You know, I've been watching, like, you know, a lot of Stephen Bonez, another great Paladin, and seeing how he gears out, and, you know, just obviously always learning, no matter what. At the end of the day, as a, you know, a content creator, as a, you know, person that, you know, plays Paladin, loves this class, you know, and I basically shit, eat, and breathe, you know, Paladin, especially Ret Paladins when it comes to you know, Season of Discovery, you know, and just playing World of Warcraft overall, especially in retail. I'm playing Paladin over there, which I'm probably going to have a retail like Paladin guy, because I've been doing really good on my my parsing on you know, retail overall. I'm getting better at it. I must say, like, I love the class, but like what I recommend is always building to however you want to build your Paladin overall, because there's so many ways of going about it, where you can have a more damaging Ret Paladin where it's just a glass cannon Ret Paladin. You can have, you know, a more tankier Ret Paladin where it becomes a nightmare to fight you. And now that since we have a lot of, you know, better intellect and mana return values with Crusader Strike, Ret Paladin seems really scary this time around in PvP. Especially in Season of Discovery when the meta is so bursty, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, you build your Paladin however you want to. I know, obviously, there's prots out there that are going to build very tanky, and they're looking really scary with Reckoning, especially with the stats that they're getting, you know, with their set in ZG. Shockadin's looking really scary in PvP, especially with the stats that they're getting from ZG. Overall, though, Paladin looks like it's eating. That's all I'm gonna say. As far as like the holy paladins, I know, like, you know, I always hear people saying, well, I wish there was more love for the holy paladins. I wish too, don't get me wrong. I know, I remember when, you know, they basically got, you know, the shit end of the stick for those 3 lockouts when Divine Light was going crazy. Trust me, Divine Light was helping us out in Rets and PvP, but when they did that to you guys in PvE, that was a bit of a bummer. I wish they compensated for something else, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? I think low-key we're gonna be eating really good next phase, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope you enjoyed this, basically this, like, I call it a guide, so to say. You know, I'm just saying basically recommending what I would go for in terms of like gearing. And this is what I, you know, advise to you guys, and, you know, maybe you take my advice with a grain of salt on how you think, you know, you want to build your Paladin. And I recommend, you know, just going from there, you know, looking in any add-ons you might need, you know, from, you know, Paladin add-ons in terms of weak auras, in terms of, like, swing timers and stuff of that nature. If you haven't before, please do it, you know. But that's basically it. Much love to you, amigos. Keep on keeping on. Shine on. Lock it in. All that good stuff. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Did someone shit in my coffee? It tastes like shit!